Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Nigel here with the Land Rover build for you again, and I believe this is part 11. I should have checked. This is part 11, I think. So basically, thanks for tuning in. Hope you like what you see. Please hit that subscribe button, and if you do like the video, please hit the like button as well. So right, where are we now? I'm going to start looking at some detail parts and some lights and stuff while we've still got it all in pieces. The Land Rover itself is still over here. I haven't touched it since the last video, and what I'm going to do is actually finish the build and then do the roof last. So we'll go from there. Right, so looking at the lights, first things first, there are a couple of errors in their colour callouts. They're telling you that these rear lights should be orange. Oh no, that's right, they're saying they're red. They look orange to me on there, so that is correct. So you've got the two larger lights are the North American spec lights, I believe, I think you call them, and they're red, and then you've got the outer two larger lights, they're orange, and then you've got H there, which is the reversing light, and then you've got the two outer lights here, which would normally be, the top one would normally be orange for the indicator, and the bottom one would normally be red for the rear lights. They're both red. And on the front you've got the upper light is clear, which is your side light, and then the lower light is orange, which is your indicator. And we're also going to take a look at the headlamps. So what I've done, I started off by finding all the parts on the clear sprue, and I've given the back of them a coat of silver paint so that when we glue them on we don't see the dark plastic through them, because the problem is if you just leave the back clear, when you glue it on it looks very, very dark. So I give it a coat of silver paint, and then it gives it something to reflect through, and you can see there I've painted the reds and the oranges on there. These lights actually have a black trim around them, or a green trim, whatever you want to do. So basically you'll have the silver on the back, you'll have the colour on the front, or just the clear as it is here, and then you'll have like a rim of colour around there, a black or a green. We'll do that, we'll look at that as well. So let these dry and then we'll look at getting them on. Now the headlights, you get these lovely clear lenses, as you can see, with a rim around them, and then what you actually get in the kit is just a flat base to put them on, so that's going to look bloody awful. So what I thought I'd do was see if I could actually improve this. So what I've done is given it a bowl, so you can see there we've got a headlamp bowl in there, and you can see the light picking up on the shiny silver paint, so you can see there the difference is quite astounding. So how do we do that? Right, this is a tool that many of you may not have. If you haven't got one, I would suggest you get one. You can get them really cheap these days. You don't need to go for Mitutoyo. You know, if you're only using it for your modelling and stuff and you're not after accuracy, just get the cheapest one you can find. So I'm going to set my 0 there. Right, so I know that this square in here is 6mm across. Okay, so 5.98, 6mm across. Now I could try and draw diagonal lines across the bolts, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is set this to 3mm. Okay, so we'll set that to 3mm. There we go, 3.01, that'll do. And then what I can do is put this in here and push one side up against, and then scratch a line across all four sides. And that will give me, whoops, I went off there, and that will give me a centre. And the reason I'm doing it across all four is because if I end up with a pair of lines, then I know that I need to go in between that pair of lines. And as you can see there on the horizontal, I've got two lines, so I've got to go in between them. So I'm just going to scribe this one again and then go across here. Yeah, so you can see there we have got actually a pair of lines, so we've actually got a square in the centre we need to aim for. So I'm just going to go under my magnifier and just make sure I get this in the centre. Okay, so I'm using a pointing tool, a pointed scriber, to just go in the centre like that. Then I'm going to come in with a 1mm drill and just make a quick mark, and the drill's wandered off, so what I'm going to do is go in my pointer again, like so, just pick up on that hole There we go, just make a spot mark in the centre. There we go, we've got a hole now in the centre, as you can see there. Okay, what I'm going to do is look behind. What I'm going to do now is drill this, and looking behind, what I'm looking for is the drill to just start to, whoops, I went through, I shouldn't have gone through, I pushed too hard. That was something I didn't want to happen, so I'm going to have to fill that in now, but never mind. Right, so I'm now going to come in with a slightly larger drill and make sure this time I don't go through. Then I'm going to use this burr. This is a ball-ended 3mm burr. And again, I don't want to go through with this. Sounds like a doubtful bride at the altar, doesn't it? I don't want to go through with this. Then I'm going to take this one out, which is normally a pain. If you have trouble pulling them out, just basically take this off, because as you pull the burr out, what you're doing is actually clamping the collet. So if you take the outer off, you'll normally find they come out a lot easier. I'm going to take, this is a 5mm ball. I'm just going to go in until it sort of reaches the bottom, like so. And we're still in the centre, so that's good. And I normally get loads of questions, where can I get those cutters from? If you look for grinding burrs or Dremel tools or whatever, you'll find them on eBay, on Amazon, whatever. They're called burrs. There we go, so I can just push that in there like that. In fact, what I could do is use that hole to our advantage, and I could put a bulb in there. If you want to know how to do that, you can go back and look at the beginner scale modelling session I did for when I built the Monty's Humber, the Airfix 1/32 scale Monty's Humber. What I did on that one, I actually put bulbs in there. I'm just going to use this filler knife just to push the back down. Okay, so there we go. So that's that done like that. So I'm just going to fill that hole, or put a bulb in there. I should decide. No, I'm going to fill it, I think. Maybe we'll put a bulb in there. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've put a bulb in that one now. I've drilled a 1mm hole in the bottom of this one. All I've got here is a piece of sprue. What I showed you before, I used clear, but there's no need to use clear. What I've done is just got a piece of white plastic rod here, 1mm in diameter, and I'm just going to put it near a lighter and just melt the end so it becomes like a shiny, there we go. That's all we're after, is just like a shiny lump on the end, so it looks like it's sort of bigger on the front than it is on the back, as a light bulb is. And then I could just pop that into there like so. I have to cut the back of it off because it's so long. I'm just going to pop that in, just square it up, and a drop of extra thin quick setting. To hold that in place, and then trim the back off, and there we go, we've got our light bulb in there. Maybe push it slightly bit deeper, and then we can come along with some silver paint and just paint over the front of it and around the sides, just like so. And there we go, and you can see when you look through the lens, that's going to look a lot more realistic than just having a flat plastic base there. I'm just trying to push the back to get the front of the bulb more central. And on this one here, we've got no paint on it at all, so I'm going to come in with some paint, get paint all around that bulb, and then go around the edge. Not too worried about getting on the green because we're going to need touch-ups anyway, and we're going to be doing a bit of dry brushing. I'm not going to weather the living daylights out of this because Army Land Rovers are fairly well looked after as far as cleanliness and maintenance goes, and they are often, I mean, when have you ever seen one looking really tatty on the road? They normally are very well looked after. There we go. So that's that. I'll do a little bit of a touch up afterwards after we've got the bulb in, the light in, but I'm going to have to paint the rim anyway of the clear lens. And there we go. So now we've got, instead of those horrible flat featureless bases, we've now got a couple of headlamps, which will look great when they've got the clear lenses on them. And there we are, guys. I've glued the lenses in, you can see that, and I've just used 4 little drops of micro crystal clear. You can see on the right hand side they're already drying and becoming invisible. So there we go. I think you'll agree that's a far better look than just having the flat plastic lump in there behind. So there's an improvement. There is an issue with the shape of the front of this though, so I'm a bit you know, it's a bit of a waste of time going to all this extra effort to add this detail when the actual overall shape of the thing is wrong. It just doesn't look right. So I think now we need to look at getting these front wings on. So we'll go to the back of the manual here. Basically we've got to fit some little bits and pieces to them first. So we'll get our box of parts, get them out here. So we've got our mirrors there. There's a radiator hose of some description. So you've got here is our washer bottle, so we'll take the toothpick off of there and remove the blue tack. And then we've got our header tank here for the cooling system. So these have got to be glued into place, so I'm going to, so this one is going in here, so I'm going to just take my knife, wherever it may be, and gently remove some paint. Now it's something I wouldn't normally bother doing, removing the paint, but with the quick setting, in fact I will use the ordinary extra thin. What I find, I keep hitting the camera, I'm sorry. What I find is if you've got painted there, it just the glue kind of soaks into the paint rather than staying on the plastic, so I just remove it, you know, when I can. So there we go. And as we all know, guys, once this is finished, we will make a start on our Mustang race car build. So something to look forward to. And the paint is here now for the body. So I'll be starting off with the body, and then while we're doing the rest of the model, the body can be drying. That's my phone, and I'm not going to answer it because I know it's a garbage call. It's probably somebody telling me that they're going to take $39.95 out of my bank account for Amazon in the hope that I ring them back. There we go. That's that done. So that's that water bottle in, which is over the other side of the instructions. You can see it here. So these fenders, or these wings should I say, are ready to go on now. Now that black pipe, which I thought was a header pipe, is actually a heater hose, so that's going to go in there like so. So I'll just put a drop of glue on the back of there and make sure that stays in place. And that's going to go in behind there, I'm guessing. Yeah. there's no point in fitting that whatsoever because you can't see any of it. It just completely disappears down behind that wing. So we'll do that. Roof's going to come off. So what we'll do now is we'll get there's a tab and a hole in the front of the wing here, the fender. There we go. So that's going to clip on like that. The back of the wing needs to go down. There we are. And then this other one's going to go in the same. So what we're doing here, we're hooking this inner fender here is hooking over that shock absorber top mount. There we go, that's in like that. And then the rear of the fender will come down like so. And you would basically want to make sure the bottom here is parallel, is flush, and is flush this way. Basically, with all that squeezed tight together, I mean, you could actually leave them unglued, I think. They fit that well. But they don't look right. Something looks wrong. I'm not sure what it is, but something looks wrong. So I'm going to, because I'm going to be painting this, I'm going to put a drop of glue in there. And a drop of glue in there. And let that do its thing. And I think what I'll do is just put a drop of glue at the back, and I'm not going to glue the top because if you remember, I want the bulkhead to be able to float. So I'm putting quite a big drop of glue in there so it gets up into all the joints and everything. And that should be enough. And I'm just going to make sure the bonnet still fits. And yes, it does. Or maybe it does look okay. Maybe it's having the lights in there that made it look a bit funny, but that bonnet certainly looks very flat. I think it should be higher up. I think it should be taller. But then if it was taller, it would be interfering with the air inlets there. Maybe the whole rings are too tight. Something's wrong. We'll work it out. We will work it out. Right, so we're now going to put the grill on. We've already got the Land Rover badge stuck on, as you can see. So we'll trim away this sprue that we left on. And I'm just going to use, this is one of my Infinity PE sanders with the glued on. It's got the glued on 400 grit paper on there. So this will just clip in place. I'm hoping it will clip in place because I want to remove it for painting. Yep. That just clips in place like that. The front bumper is going to go on now. Just remember I added these two parts here with the bolts in. Okay, looks like we've got an issue with the grille is not sat properly into the chassis, so it's pushing the fenders out as well. So I'm going to lift this side, push that side down. Okay, what I'm going to do is glue the bumper in place. And then we can look at the fit of that afterwards. Okay, so that's the bumper glued in place. We can see we've got the bumper is probably horizontal to the ground and the fenders aren't. So basically it needs to go like this. That's a bit better. But as I say, I haven't glued anything to the chassis at the front, so I've got the ability to move everything around still. And then when it's all in place, I can just put a drop of super glue just to lock it in place and then weld it with some extra thin. So there we go, you see I can pull that around now, and that's right, that's correct. So that's that. Now the bonnet I'm not going to glue on, so we can just leave that off. That may as well go back in the box. We've got the interior mirror there, we're not going to be putting that on yet. And we've got our doors and our spare wheel. So there we go, that's all we've got left now to go on. Is the mirrors, the bonnet, the doors and the tailgate. So there's the spare wheel carrier there. So we're ready now to start looking at shortening this rear end. So basically we need to remove take our rule, .22 millimeters roughly from the rear end, from the top. So let me get on and mark that out. But quite impressed with how this is looking at the moment. Yeah, those headlights do make a hell of a difference, don't they? They really do. Right, so I've done my measurements now, and basically what I've done, I only need to take 22 millimeters out. So I've got a piece of 10 millimeter Tamiya tape here, and it's just, I've put that parallel so I get a nice square line. So the cut is basically going to be here and here. This is another piece of masking tape, and I've cut it to 21 millimeters wide. So I'm going to cut up to the edge of that tape, put it together. If I've gone too much, then I'll put a little piece of plastic card in there. If it's not enough, just sand it down. So it's going to require some pretty accurate cutting. So I've got my trusty saw here, and I think what I'll do is put a new blade in it. Although no, this one should be fine. Yeah, that one should be fine. It's just broken on the fine side. So what I'm going to do is start off in these little raised areas here and just cut up to the tape, and then I can put the blade into those and follow along, and then into that one, trying to keep the knife, the blade perpendicular to the surface. In fact, I do need a new blade. I'm going to change this blade over. Right, I've changed the blade. I've got a brand new blade in there now. And just a word of warning, this is the JLC saw. And this blade, you can see it's got JLC on it, Liebherr, Kopacek on here. Some of the blades you buy these days don't have any writing on them at all, like this one. You see this one has. You see this one's got nothing written on it at all. And they're quite brittle, and they're nothing like as good. So be careful what you're buying. I'm not going to mention where I got them from, but it's the same place that I mention a lot, modelling tools, and they have sold some that don't have the name on. So be very wary. Make sure if you're buying them, make sure you ask for them with the name on. And I'm not talking behind their backs because I did mention it to them when I saw them at a show last, which would have been last year now due to all this stuff that's going around us. Just holding this now. Just don't try and go mad with it, just gently push the saw through, and then you won't lose control of what you're doing. If you go in there and start hacking away at it, you'll start bending stuff, putting heat in, breaking it, whatever. Just push or pull the saw, and we can come around to this side. Perhaps I'll go this way. I can just put my saw in there. Just cut that away. What I'm doing all the time is, like I did here, I'm sort of making myself a reference to go to. So, you know, I've got those ridges there, I can make a line in them and then just go across those lines. I can do the same now, go from the corner to the line I've made there in that raised lip around the edge, and then I'm guaranteed to end up with a nice straight cut. As I say, if we go wrong, it doesn't really matter, we can add a piece of card. There you go, we're through now. The same here, so we're through on this side. There we go, we're through. And there we go. That's how you saw parts away, guys, rather than just going in and starting going mad. There you go. If you just gently stroke at it like that, you can end up with a very nice, very flat edge. And if I take a large sanding stick like this one here, use the finer side, just basically rub on there like that, or I can use one of my zebra sticks. I've got the 220 zebra stick. There we go. And that will go back together perfectly, and what we're going to end up with is that being on there like that. So I know you guys like to see this, so I'm not just going to say, alright, I'll go on and get this cut off. What I'll do now is I'll do this so you can see what I'm doing. So once again, I'm just going to make some cuts along the edge of the tape on these ridges, and then I can do the same down here on these raised areas, the same here. Clean the blade. What I can do is pick up in those two ridges that I've cut, and then pick up in those two ridges, pick up in those two ridges. There we go, we've got a cut now. Come out to the other side. Just like so. And then coming around here, just following that line, following the edge of the tape, making sure the blades ends up in that groove we've previously cut. Again, in that groove we previously cut, up to the top. And I'm not putting any pressure down, I'm just placing the blade into that groove, like so. And this applies the same if you're doing an aircraft fuselage, to add in a twin cockpit section, or cutting the wing out of an aircraft to remove or add an engine or something. Just take your time and don't go hacking away at it. So you can see we're through the sides now. So we just go over the top. And there we go, we're off. Take the zebra stick. That sand to make sure it's all nice and flat, and then we should find that this rear end will just butt on. There we go, we got a nearly perfect fit. And then this is going to sit on here like so, and as you can see, it looks like we're pretty much spot on. Now these fiberglass hoods probably wouldn't have been a perfect fit anyway, so but that is spot on. As you can see, the way it's joining at the back there, I've got the sides butted up together, and then that's fitting there beautifully. So what we can do now is just remove this tape, because we don't want the glue to capillary underneath there. that over there. And I'm just going to give this a very light sanding on the top. Let's get the dust away from there. Just to perfect that joint a little better. And then what we can do is glue that together and do a test fit. So let's get our glue over here. In fact, I'll use the quick setting. And what I want to do is just tack this on. Just to check that it looks right. And of course, when we do it properly, we can back it up with something. There we go. Now you could actually add plastic strip inside if you want to strengthen the joint, but then it will foul on the roll cage and you may not want to see all that, so I'm not going to be doing that. So see, we've got a bit of an interference here. We've got an area in the middle here touching and the outer edges aren't touching. So what we'll do is we'll just try this on the model, see how well it fits. And it looks like we can't afford just to sand that flat, just to get rid of that waviness on there. So I'm going to take that off. And I'm just going to check which side of it isn't flat, because one side of it has got a bow in it, and we can see that side's got a bow in it. So I'm just going to sand that flat. And then this side was the same. Now that side's flat, so just sand that like that, and then we'll do the same on this one. And then we should get a much better. There we go, we've got a much better fit now. Just going to take a little bit more off. There we go, and I'm going to use the extra thin now, the ordinary. Basically because I can get more on the brush. Put that together. I'm going to make sure these ridges on the roof line up. That's the most important feature that is going to be a nightmare to correct. Okay, so if we just push the rule up against there. There we go, we've got that nice and flat now, and then we can put some glue in here. Plenty in there, don't be shy. You want a really good solid weld here. Just get them all lined up. Like so. And we should be able to come along with our rule and push it into the rule. Get it all nice and straight. As we can see there, just a little run of Mr. Surfacer in there and we'll be fine. Then I'm going to put some glue down the inside of the top just to make sure we're good and welded. I wouldn't advise using super glue for things like this because it's areas like this you could get a crack because the super glue is very brittle. So I would advise using a plastic modelling cement so we get the welding action. So there we go, we just let that tack off. Now we should be able to just slot that on there. You can see we've got a lovely fit. So there is our short wheelbase Land Rover done, and now actually it does look right. Let's see what it looks like with the bonnet on. Yeah, looking good. Hope you agree. Looking lovely. Obviously do some final photos when it's all finished. So I'm going to call that a day for this video, guys, because I want to let this hard top cure for at least 48 hours before I start messing with it, because you all know when you've got a welded joint like this, what will happen is the glue will sink as the solvents evaporate, and what we'll end up with is a sink mark if I deal with the joint now. So it's best to let it, it's best to just let it go off and do its own thing, and then deal with the seam afterwards. The other thing, of course, you could do is cut right down the back edge there and just glue the back edge on, which would probably be a better option. But I'd rather have to work on this nice flat surface than try and get a nice neat corner afterwards. So you pay your money, you take your choice. Of course, you could always cut it here if you wanted to. Same issue as cutting it here. I always find it's best, if you can, it's best to cut it along a, you know, I could have come more forward, along a nice flat surface, so you can just got flat surfaces to sand and get straight and everything, rather than have to deal with any features or anything like that. There we go. I'm going to clamp a couple of rolls to there, so that's all nice and straight on the sides, and then just let that go off. Thanks for watching, guys. I think the next part will see this finished. All we've got to do now is some paint touch up and add the lights, and we're basically there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all very soon for the final part of this, and we'll get it all done.